Hi, Richard. Welcome to the Master Online.
Hi, Robin. Great to be back with you. Right, come on, fire away.
Well, tell us about you. How did you begin your journey, your musical journey? Where did it start?
Yeah, it started in my hometown of Stonehaven, which is a little coastal town just south of Aberdeen. And my mum and dad both played the piano. Dad couldn't read music. Mum could read music a bit. But both mum and dad came from families where music was just a huge part of family life. But hardly anybody could read music. It was music that was played. And so my dad knew all the Scottish country dance tunes by ear, and he could play them. And Mum knew some of the popular music. She was a big fan of Glenn Miller, In the Mood. And so my brother, my late brother Will, and I grew up just here. We were always just playing. We never thought anything about it. And we picked up things from Dad, and we practiced, we played, and gradually it became we got it sorted. But I always learned to play to hear before I learned to read music.
So this kind of playing by ear, just picking things up or messing around with things or experimenting with things was almost a culture that you grew up with.
Yeah, well, it was because music lessons were expensive, and I think I'm the classic case of I was the first of the family of the post-war generation to go to music college, to go on to further education, and sort of grew up in a council estate, and where all the kids were all encouraged to go and get your letters. That was how your parents put it. Get your letters. Doesn't matter what they are. Go and get your letters. And eventually I had enough musical vocabulary, and I went to the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, which is now the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. I went there in 1968 as, quite honestly, the worst pianist in my year, but I had a really good ear. I mean, I could hear things, I could play, and I was really into jazz at that point. And I was the only one that was into jazz. But everybody else could play, so well. It was just a huge shock to me to realise how bad my technique was, and I had to work like crazy over 3 years.
Mm, mm. So as you grew up, did you also follow a traditional route as well, or was it totally experimentation?
Well, no, it was a mixture of both because my teenage years I went to piano teachers, but one guy came to Stonehaven when I was 15. It changed my life. That was Mr. McGinnigal, David McGinnigal, and he introduced me to the music of Dudley Moore, the jazz pianist from the great program Not Only But Also. And I was fascinated by this. When I saw Mr. McGinnigal play, I thought, how'd you do that? I was just, I was like the, the, the hook. He put the hook in my mouth, and it's been there ever since. And he was fantastic. He just gave me all this encouragement. And eventually, he got me to a reasonable enough standard that I went into the academy and continued there. But jazz in those days was a completely, this was a no-no. I was very nearly, I got into the Bad Boys books, because I was playing jazz in pubs. I was told, you're not here to do that, you're here to do real music.
It's a bit like I was taught jazz piano by somebody who studied it in Moscow in the 70s, which I think must have been quite incredible as well, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What that was like. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, so although you are a great jazz improviser, you have a great understanding and knowledge of different styles. Did that come from some traditional piano teaching in your teens combined with your own desire and this inspirational teacher?
Yeah, well, it was just that I kept hearing things as music. I didn't see the need to say this is jazz, this is classical, this is folk, because they all use the same chords.
Yes.
It's just played in different styles. But my days as a student, it was just you weren't, you're a black sheep if you played in a band. And I always thought that was wrong. It's so different now because, the irony is 50 years after I left the academy, I went back as the visiting external examiner on the jazz course. And I'm saying to the students, you have no idea how lucky you are that
Mm.
you're in this position now. Phew.
It was almost musical discrimination, really.
Yeah, yeah, it was. But now it's different, and musicians that I work with, I mean, I teach. I have the exalted position as honorary professor of jazz piano at St Andrews University, and so, but I work a lot with the classical organ students. You know, show them how to improvise, and I work as part of a team where jazz is part of musical development. Now, that was never the case, you know, when I was a student, but thankfully it is now.
Now, after the academy, of course, your career has grown in many different ways. What are the highlights for you of that development?
Well, in 1976, I was asked if I'd like to start a jazz orchestra, and I started the Fife Youth Jazz Orchestra. And so we're still going strong. And that has been like my, you know, nowadays, if I was a kid, I'd think of going to study jazz at a program, you know, in the RCS or London or America, Berkeley. But Fife Youth Jazz Orchestra has been my Berkeley because I've always tried to do things differently and learn new things. And I've worked with great musicians like the great saxophone player Joe Temperley, a Fife guy who went on to play with Winter Marsalis, who was my mentor. I learned so much from him. I started doing teaching courses with him. And when you're working with great musicians, quite honestly, you shut up and you listen to what they have to say and you absorb it. You go and think about it, you know, and it then becomes part of you. And but FIJO has definitely been a kickstart for me because it's taught me how to take rehearsals, how to be organized in terms of teaching improvisation. And, you know, we've now spawned a lot of jazz musicians who are big names in the jazz world in this country.
And of course, you had the success even last night, just before this recording.
Yeah, well, last night, was wonderful that on BBC Four, a Fife Youth Jazz Orchestra bass player, Ewan Hasty, what was the BBC Jazz Musician of the Year. And Ewan came to FIJO when he was 12, playing bass guitar. He could play these Jaco Pastorius licks on the bass, but couldn't read music. And I thought, well, okay, you're going to go one of two ways. You'll either just say, I don't want to read music, I'm going to do my own thing. Or you'll think, if I want to be a musician, I have to be able to read. I have to be able to understand what these chords are. And that's what he took. And honestly, he came on my jazz summer school. That's Richard Michael's Jazz Summer School, which takes place every summer, first week in July, residential course. And he's just blossomed. But the thing is, he's a great role model for the kids in the band just now, as are Fergus McCready, pianist, Helena Kay, saxophone, Callum Gourley, bass. I mean, many others that have come through the band and are playing not just jazz but all kinds of music.
So tell me about obviously this was your grounding an educator, your passion for others to develop and develop a sense of freedom and their own style and their own expression is obviously in your heart. Now, how did it come about that you came to your Hal Leonard publication?
Uh, I think you just yeah when you've been teaching as long as I have and working, um, folk get to know about what you do, and somebody at Hal Leonard thought, right, okay, we need to get a book that will fit into this learning thing for kids. So they called it Jazz Piano for Kids, and I said, right, okay, I'll do it. But the book is not for kids. That's just like a kind of marketing thing. Anybody that's interested in jazz piano will get something out of it because it's all to do with videos and playing along, clapping, grooving, and everything. But you know that book is it's been I say a year and a half. It's been out now, and it's selling very well. You know, it's very pleased that you know my methods are going out. But my methods are just a combination of everything that I've learned from other people. You know, this is how you learn. This is how Bach learned from books to Huda. You know, I'd say, show me what you can do, man. Oh, okay, right, I'll go and practice that. Okay, but then it comes out as J.S. Bach and not books to Huda.
Exactly. In fact, I think one of my first teacher training instructions was to beg, steal, and borrow wherever I went.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Great advice.
So obviously, you're somebody who's always looking forward. Because we've talked earlier about the journey and the journey being the important bit. And if you arrive at your destination, it's a bit like going on a steam train. Then the experience of being on the steam train is finished.
Yeah.
Uh, so where do you see things going in the future, or are you just following wherever the journey leads you?
Well, I'm trying to push myself. I mean, what my motivation is that I want to be a better musician this time next year than I am now. And I've always felt that. And I say to my students, if I thought I wasn't going to be a better musician, I'd pack it in. I'd stop. But why stop when you're enjoying yourself? And there's so much still to do. I you know, I'm 73, right? I've been playing the piano for a long, long time, but I'm enjoying it as much now as I've ever done. And why stop? And I see the benefits of jazz education, of youngsters getting on, like you and Hasty winning that prize last night. But the thing is, he'll now go on and he'll influence other kids, and I think that's great. That's part of what this process is. You get beg, steal, or borrow. It's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, what you're saying there is about passing on to one generation is passing on to the other, and it's not just the oral tradition of jazz, but it's the oral tradition of the world. So I had the good fortune to stay with a Gambian tribe.
Okay.
And the person who taught me the drumming and the songs and everything that I learnt when I lived with them,
Yeah.
of course, if anybody knows anything about African music, was the griot. And the griot's job within the tribe is to remember all the traditions and the songs and ensure that the next generation learn them and that they are handed down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
And,
Well,
and music in our world also needs griots.
yeah, it does. And I think it's you're here to pass things on. And if I have an ambition, yeah, well, I do. It is that I be allowed to work with music teachers and show them, okay, you can do this. You just need to learn a few simple techniques and develop your confidence. I taught for over 30 years in Beath High School in Cowdenbeath, okay? And I realized that I wasn't teaching music, I was teaching confidence.
Mm.
I was teaching kids who would come in and say, "Oh, I'm not very great at this." Oh. Say, "Come on, let's play. Okay, come on, let's smile. Let's have some fun. Let's play some music." And I realized that, yeah, I could get these kids to walk into an exam room with confidence and play. All examiners will tell you, they can tell from the way somebody walks in how they sit at the piano. You can almost tell the mark they're going to get.
Yes.
You practice walking into a room confidently, and having done it practice, it sets you up to perform. And
Yes.
that's what I did.
Interestingly, I was appointed by Douglas Coombs to his
Oh, yeah.
choir adjudicators
Yes, I know Douglas.
team.
Yes.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Douglas's team, and I had to do a day of assessment
Yeah.
to be part of that team.
Yeah.
And one of the things we did do actually was watch videos of choirs walking on to
Yeah.
decide how we thought they would perform even before we heard them.
Absolutely right. Yeah. 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 That's it. So much of it is just in the, it's nothing to do with arrogance. It's to do with just confidence. It's being able to say, and I say to the kids in the band, right, come on, you're going to walk on here like we own the place, right? We're going to play, but you're going to radiate some joy because there's enough misery in the world. Our job is to spread a little joy, and we don't do that by going on like that.
Do you know, Richard, that's a perfect point to end this interview on. Our job is to spread a little joy.
Just, yeah.
You heard it first here.
Politicians, listen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard.